What's up, folks? It's Coach Ty back at you with another one, and today we have our calf body part guide. As usual, we've got the anatomy, volume recommendation, and my favorite exercises. So here we go. All right, here we go. Let's get to the anatomy. First and foremost, we know that we can divide the calves into three subregions: the gastrocnemius, lateral, and medial, and then the soleus. And the soleus actually makes up the bulk of your calf muscle. And also the soleus is on the outside of your calf, gastrocnemius on the inside. But for the sake of this video, we're gonna keep it to pretty much just gastrocnemius and soleus. Now, both of those heads plantar flex your ankle. The gastrocnemius, however, also attaches at your knee, and it acts in conjunction with your hamstring to flex your knee. So this is why maybe when you've performed hamstring curls before, you might have felt your calves working a little bit. That's why. And also, by the way, that's totally normal. One interesting thing I learned when I started researching for this video was that you can preferentially target different heads or the different parts of your gastrocnemius. By internally rotating your hip or pointing your hips inward, you can preferentially target the lateral gastrocnemius or the outside of the gastrocnemius, and by externally rotating your hips or pointing your toes outward, you can preferentially target the medial gastrocnemius. The reasons for this as of right now are unknown. We don't know why this works because the calves don't operate on the hips at all. They don't externally or internally rotate the hips, so we don't know why this works. However, based on the research, it does seem to work. We also know from the research and from the anatomy of the calves that they can experience stretch-mediated hypertrophy, and so we'll have exercises in our selection section that keep that in mind. And one more thing to note on this, we do know that the soleus can be preferentially targeted by performing calf raises with a flexed knee. Since the gastrocnemius also connects to the knee, when you flex your knee, you're putting the gastrocnemius into what is called active insufficiency. Now, I'm not gonna go super in depth on active versus passive insufficiency. That's a little bit more complicated than we need to get for the purpose of this video. But again, the main thing to know, the soleus is preferentially targeted when you have a flexed knee or when you're performing seated calf raises. On to our volume recommendation. Now, the calves, you probably know where I'm going with this already. The calves are one of the most slow twitch dominant muscles in the body. We as humans in our hunter-gatherer days used to walk thousands of miles on a regular basis, and so our calves had to be our endurance muscles because they had to keep us upright and walking for very, very long periods of time. So over time, we evolved to have very slow twitch dominant calf muscles. So you can throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at your calves and they'll recover just fine. I would do as many as 5 sets per day, minimum 4. You can train your calves every day, and again, they'll recover just fine. And we're gonna keep the rep ranges on the higher side, between 12 and 20. Now moving on to our exercise selection section. So our first move is going to be a standing calf raise. Now, we didn't have a standing calf raise at any of the gyms that I record in, so we are using a Smith machine. But one thing the Smith machine does that you can't really do with a normal calf raise, or most normal standing calf raise machines, is putting the body at a roughly 20 to 30 degree angle. Now, what this does is it extends the range of motion that your ankles will have to go through. Because you are being pushed backwards, you can flex and extend that ankle to a much higher degree than you otherwise would be able to. You can also further extend the range of motion by putting your toes up on plates. Also should note, again, you can perform any of the standing calf raises with your toes pointed inward or outward to, again, target the lateral or the medial gastrocnemius. Next, we have a seated calf raise. I once again did not have a seated calf raise machine when I was recording this, so we're gonna use the Smith machine. Every gym has a Smith machine, or almost every gym. You can use a hip thrust pad or a yoga mat in between the bar and your thighs to give yourself some cushion. And one thing I really like to do with my seated calf raises, is walk my heels or my feet further back. So again, I get a longer range of motion. Because that knee is flexed, we're training the soleus with this move, and because the feet are further back, we're getting an even longer range of motion at the ankle, which is always desirable for obvious reasons. And then our final move, the jumping calf raise. I'm gonna link an article about this move from Menno Henselmans in the description, so check that out for more details. But essentially, you wanna do a slight dip at the knee and then explode up onto your toes. Hold for a 1 count once you hit the top of the movement, and then sink back down. All right, folks, that's it for our calf body part guide. Thank you for listening and watching. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. I've got 2 more videos in the corners for you now, and I will see you with the next one. Deuces.